Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Today is Tuesday, December 9th, 2025, and we have big news coming out of Ukraine. President Zelenskyy says he wants to move forward with elections during wartime. So this is quite big news because most recently he was receiving EU backing to continue on as president without the need of any elections. However, President Donald J. Trump had stated that President Zelenskyy needed to hold elections, and this is with the obvious situation that if they were ever to get find a peace deal that would be agreeable, there would need to be a leader in Ukraine who had sufficient legitimacy to sign that deal, for it to have any effect, for it to have any legitimacy. So essentially, President Trump agreed with the Russian position that President Zelenskyy was no longer legitimate as someone who could sign the dotted line as a representative of the Ukrainian people, although as the day-to-day leader of Ukraine, the Russians said, well, he's de facto ruler, but he can't sign any agreements because he's lost legitimacy with so many elections bypassed through the martial law. So anyway, we have this announcement from France 24. Let's listen to that briefly.
Paris, we begin this edition in Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's ready to hold elections during wartime, provided the United States and European partners can guarantee security for the process.
So there you have it. He's agreed for elections as long as the United States and European countries can guarantee security for the elections. So I don't think that's the only problem with these elections, but you can see in his visit to the Pope, doesn't look very enthusiastic, doesn't look like what he wanted to get. And of course, when you're a European leader and you fall into hard times and you visit the Pope, that is basically the sign that things have completely fallen apart, and this is your last recourse, kind of like your Hail Mary pass from the one end zone to the other, hoping that it gets to someone. And so he made this attempt to kind of restore confidence in himself by his visit to the Pope. But then he realized, well, he's not getting anywhere. And if he wants to restore the assistance, political, military, financial support of the United States, he needs to carry out these elections. So he's finally come to that realization. And of course, once the election is conducted, if it's conducted with any sort of democracy in mind, then it should be able to arrive to a leader who could sign the dotted line and give legitimacy to any peace deal. So you can see that the cogs have been moving behind the scenes to get this to get us to this point. Now, who is President Volodymyr Zelenskyy? Why is he president? Well, here we go. You can see here on this Netflix series. Here it is, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, an actor, comedian, who took this role of a someone who made a social media campaign against corruption in Ukraine and then became president of the country. So this is from 2017, and the summary of this series, which is viewable on Netflix, called Servant of the People, 3 seasons. After a Ukrainian high school teacher's tirade against government corruption goes viral on social media, he finds himself the country's new president. So basically, this series was to present this person as clean-cut, well-shaven, upstanding individual, a teacher, and someone who was preaching against corruption. So they create this series. This is in 2017, and then this party is comes into existence in 2018. Oh, it was actually formed in 2017, officially registered in 2018. This series, which is viewable on Netflix, was financed by an oligarch who wanted to have control of the Ukrainian government, and so found this actor who's a comedian and kind of a Benny Hill style comedy, really kind of vulgar, low, how would you say this, vulgar comedy that gets lots of laughs. So anyway, he had this series. He became then this party, which was just a made-for-TV party, becomes a real party, and pretty much at the same time that this series was going on. Yeah, I believe this series was made in 2017. So this party was created in 2018, and so this series was basically a campaign for the presidential office, and I believe Yermak was involved in this. So this was, a TV series that suddenly became politics, that suddenly became a political campaign, and suddenly elevated this person who was an actor in this series to the position of president. So once he became president, then he had firmly in his sights the Russian language media in Ukraine. So we have an article here from the Atlantic Council about Russian language media as being kind of an enemy of the people. So once he becomes... So we have this paragraph from this article. The Zelenskyy administration certainly appears to recognize that simply banning Kremlin-connected Russian language media outlets is not a viable long-term solution. Instead, there is an understanding that Ukraine must look to counter Moscow narratives in the Russian language information space by producing rival content capable of competing with the Kremlin. Well, not only did they create competition to the Russian language media, they actually did ban it. They created one television outlet in Ukraine. So we went full Soviet style media and thought control in Ukraine, and he dissolved rival political parties. So we have the destruction of independent media in Ukraine. We have the dissolution of rival political parties. And here we have the list of all the political parties that have been banned in Ukraine. The Communist Party of Ukraine basically banned 1991. And then we have a couple of parties that were banned in 2014. We had the Maidan Revolution in 2014. Then we start getting more parties that are banned in 2015. In 2022, we get how many parties that are banned in 2022. So we get, if I can get it here right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 parties banned in 2022. And in 2023, one of the largest parties in Ukraine was banned, Party of Regions. So we went from a TV series about a character who fought against corruption to having a party registered officially and becoming a real political party in Ukraine, supposedly against corruption. And then we move from that to this effort by Zelenskyy to ban Russian language media, to banning all outlets except those approved by the FSB, their KGB, and dissolving rival political parties. And so the problem now that President Zelenskyy wants to hold elections is what political parties are going to be allowed to participate, what independent media will exist in Ukraine to actually put out the talking points of the rival political parties. Will independent media be allowed to exist in Ukraine? And who will be supervising this election to make sure that it is fair and independent of any government influence? So we have very good news out of Ukraine. Zelenskyy ready to push forward holding elections during wartime. And the bad news is, will it be a democratic election or just another farce? So I think if the United States has an ear towards what the Russian leaders are saying, he will push to allow independent media and to allow for independent any independent news sources in Ukraine, and then for rival political parties to be reestablished and to have a real election and to have those who are elected in Ukraine to lead the country going forward, to make decisions based on what the people want, not what some oligarch wants. So hopefully this will be the result of these elections. What will be the dates? I'm sure we'll see something in 2026, maybe in the summertime. So we can stay tuned for more information about what will go on. But if they allow for independent media to come back, allow for rival political parties to be reestablished, we could see an actual process of democracy in Ukraine. But I wouldn't hold my breath, or I wouldn't hold. If I were you, I wouldn't hold your breath that that democracy will return to Ukraine, and we know that in 2014 the Maidan coup was led by the United States. So will the U.S. undo everything it did to get to the point we are now? I really doubt it. They have $350 billion invested in this country, and I don't think they're going to give up easily. So that is my report for today. If you like this report, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Take care. Bye-bye.